maybe our discomfort and not wanting to reach out to other people or feel like we're less than or feel just insecure about conversing with other people, we have a tendency to just like look at our phones. Hey, Editor Dave here. Just a real quick disclaimer. I do cut myself a couple times in this, and it like I don't like gush blood, but it definitely keeps bleeding. So if you don't like blood, maybe skip through to like 3/4 of the way. There's some stuff where I'm not shaving anymore, and like I've like time has passed, and I'm in my office. So if you want to watch it, and you don't like blood, then skip through the bathroom scenes. Yeah. We're going to talk today about my superpower. It's not something that I ever really considered a superpower before, but there's a lot of people that have a hard time with conversation. The art of conversation is something that I think is overlooked a lot. I'm lucky in that I grew up with a family that kind of prided themselves on that. My father especially, my mother too. They were just very conversationalists and very the ability to kind of have an interaction with people and make it feel natural and just like we've been friends for a very long time, even though we just met. I feel like it's natural for me, but I realize that that's not how it is for everybody. So I want to talk about a couple of things that I do to kind of keep that mindset going, to kind of keep flexing that muscle. I'm already more geared that way because that's just the way that I grew up. I actually had the realization yesterday or a couple days ago with my wife. We were driving down the highway, and there was a section on the highway, and it's not a like, I mean, it's a well-traveled highway, but it's not like a crazy busy like a Route 5 or 405. Sorry, the 405 or the 5. Over in California, they call them not routes. Out here on the East Coast, we call it route whatever, like Route 95 or Route 128. But we were on a highway, and there was a section that turns into like all of a sudden the trees just disappear, and it's just kind of like this. I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it would be a bog, and it's just kind of like this dead area that's been flooded for a long time, and the trees just died off, and so you have this woods and this forest going, and then all of a sudden empty trees, like a lake with just skeletons of trees, and in the tops of those trees are where lots of like vultures will set their nests. And so my dad, when we would come by that area, he would stop, pull over to the emergency breakdown lane, and get out and grab his binoculars, and he'd just start looking at the birds. Because I mean, how often do you get to see birds in their natural habitat with their like all those nests and everything, and like maybe see some babies, especially for vultures. I don't know where else you'd find them. Like kind of tall, high, like craggly mountain areas, I guess. Anyway, I made this realization that it just kind of dawned on me that I said it to her that like I thought everybody did that. I thought everybody got out and like, you know, looked at stuff because that's how I grew up. My dad just enjoyed nature. And we weren't in a dangerous area. It wasn't like we were slowing down traffic. It's not, like I said, it's not a superly heavily driven highway. And he wasn't a dummy. So just in case you guys are worried. But he would stop, we'd pull over, we'd take a look for a few minutes, and then be on our way. And that was just part of our natural routine. And that was in a section of road that we would travel every weekend during the summer. There was a camp that we used to go to. And that has nothing to do really with conversation, but kind of growing up that way, thinking differently, and not feeling... I think that's part of the reason why I don't feel like if I'm talking to the CEO, I could talk to the president today, and he's just a guy. That's it. I mean, I respect his position, but it doesn't matter who that person is, because they're a person. That doesn't mean that they're better than me. I don't feel like anybody that I speak to is superior to me. They might have a role that demands respect, and so I'll show that respect as long as they have earned it. But I feel like that little bit of difference is what has helped set me apart and feel confident in situations that a lot of people don't. One of the things that I found myself doing about a year or two ago was to something, and not necessarily like, hey, I need an answer to this because I'm trying to get this done. Like, how do I export a PDF document from Microsoft Word? I can Google that. I don't need to ask anybody about that. I mean, I can if there's somebody sitting right next to me and I know that they know how to do it and they're going to be able to tell me, and I haven't bothered them with 10 billion questions already. If it's something that I can actively find out myself, I will. But there have been times on Reddit where somebody will make some sort of comment, and, you know, maybe I'm in the Photoshop subreddit, and they say something about, I don't know, maybe some sort of like new neural filter. And rather than looking it up, I may, depending on the context of the conversation, actually ask, what are you talking about? Or say, why is it that you like that? Or what is a neurofilter? Or what is whatever it is that we're talking about. And yes, the answer can always be found. I can pull up my phone. I could be in a conversation with somebody at a party, and they might say, talking about, let's just keep on the Photoshop track. They might talk about Photoshop and say, same thing, neurofilter, blah, blah, blah. In a conversation at a party, you would say, oh, what's a neurofilter? You wouldn't pull out your phone all of a sudden and like Google what's a neurofilter while you're talking to them. And so I kind of bring that same tempo, I guess, that art of conversation to online. And since I've been doing that, it's not all the time. I don't do it all the time. I mean, a lot of times it's just easier for me to just look up what they're talking about. But it helps to, in a lot of cases, the person is talking about what that is. So the person is talking about the neurofilter, and because they're interested in it and because they want to talk about it. And one of the best ways for you to get to know somebody or get past your fear or discomfort with conversing with other people is to talk to them, ask them questions. And they end up doing most all the talking. You're just asking questions. Look at this. Wow. Okay. So there's a saying that can actually help you out in this, which is be interested, don't be interesting. And I feel like a lot of times we're too busy trying to seem interesting to talk about ourselves. You as a person are just as valuable as the person, whoever you're talking to. So if you're talking to your CEO, they put their pants on one leg at a time, or their shirts on. Maybe they don't wear pants, but almost everybody wears a shirt of some sort. We all put our shirts on the same way, unless you don't wear shirts, and then I can't really help you. This is a superpower. I get it. I know a lot of people that don't like to interact with other people, and that's my comfort zone is with other people, which is funny to say because I'm actually, I guess, I don't know how, this isn't an official way of saying it, but I would say that I'm an introvert with extrovert tendencies because I'm really good one-on-one or maybe one-on-two, right? So if I'm talking to one or two people, I'm really good. But when I start to have more than that, I start to get drained very quickly. So if I'm at a party, maybe at Thanksgiving, and I don't know people, after a little while, I'll start to, like, my batteries start to discharge, and I need to be by myself, honestly. Like, when I get home, my wife is the same way. So if she says, or if I say, hey, I need to chill, we know that's code for I don't hate you, but I need to recharge. Wow. All right, this might have been a bad idea. Look at that. Okay, so knowing what your like kind of tendencies are, introvert or extrovert, that's going to determine how you kind of approach things. I'm going to assume, if you're still listening to me talk about conversation, that you're probably on the side of not feeling comfortable with conversations. So leaning into that ability to have other people converse for you and being interested versus interesting is very, very powerful. So I got the bleeding under control for the most part. So let's get you out of here. We have this art of conversation that a lot of us, especially because we're so focused on maybe our discomfort and not wanting to reach out to other people, or feel like we're less than, or feel just insecure about conversing with other people, we have a tendency to just like look at our phones. And a good kind of example of this is I went to a fancy ball. It was a snowball. It was kind of this, I wouldn't call it a gala event. We didn't have like, people weren't wearing like long dresses and like suits and ties, but people were dressed nicely. And it was this kind of fancy event for Christmas. And there was actually a guy that was sitting by himself. If I wasn't going to meet with my wife, I actually would have sat down with him, because I know what it's like to sit at the table by yourself. And I would have actually said, hey, I'm Dave. How you doing? What brings you here? And I do have to admit that that is not something that I normally would have done 5 years ago. But I think that I've built more confidence. Am I still bleeding? Yeah, a little bit. I've built more confidence throughout my career. So I feel like more like a fulfilled adult, I guess, maybe. So this superpower of conversation that I have, I've come to realize that it's a superpower. And I used to feel like for a little while, especially in California, I felt a little bit more like I was too long-winded, and I still feel that way sometimes. So I catch myself in the midst of conversation, and you might be saying that right now, like, Dave, come on, Jesus. But you know what? If you don't want to keep listening to me, you can always click off me. So I guess that's where I feel like my long-windedness is okay here. I mean, it's my channel, and I'll do what I want. There are fewer people that I interact with that have that natural art of communication, and I feel like it's the older generation that's really much better with it. And I think I would venture a guess to say that it's because they had to, and we didn't used to have the cell phones or the internet to kind of escape into and, you know, put our discomfort into. So you naturally had to have those conversations. And I'm also from New England, so we have kind of this natural sense of community that I didn't experience over in California. That's not to say that the folks in California are bad in any way, but they just interact differently. What I've kind of attributed this to partially is the weather. And we have a tendency there are some winters that we get snowed in. It's not like Alaska. Like, we're not like, you know, we can't get out of our house, but there's times where it's like, it's too damn cold, or there's 3 feet of snow out there. I don't want to go out. So we have that kind of like natural, I'll call it a hardship. Or, you know, that whole weather thing that New Englanders talk about the weather quite a bit. Should hopefully not be too cold today.
Yeah. We'll get it tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Just wait till the snow.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's coming up maybe next week a little bit. But then we're going to have another 50-something degree day. So, you know, take it easy. You know, that kind of connects us. So I wanted to talk about the art of conversation because it is, I feel like, kind of getting lost with the younger generations. Not to disparage the younger generations. That's not my point. I feel like there are, especially the older generations in my own family, there's one guy in particular, my uncle, that has the art of conversation down to a T. Like there's he knows how to keep a conversation going. And I miss that from my parents. So it's refreshing when I do get to talk to my uncle, which is actually quite often. And I actually have an idea to have him on my podcast, whether it's for my Dave Grenier podcast or the 124 podcast that I'm building. I'm not sure yet, but he is going to be a really good person to kind of have a conversation with and talk about the history of 124, the address that I grew up at, not the business. The business is new. So I don't remember how much I've talked about already, and I should just do this freaking video, but it's such a in-depth reason why I like history. I don't really want to miss anything, but maybe I should just converse about it. Maybe in my next video, we'll see. But it's my great-grandfather built the house that we grew up in. It was a cottage that the whole family moved into. I don't want to give you all the details now because that's not what the point of this is. The point is the outer conversation, I feel like, has helped me greatly in my professional life as well as my personal life, but it helps me to connect with other people on a level that I don't think the vast majority of people feel confident doing. I think that's probably a good way to put it. Next time you have the opportunity to talk to somebody who you would rate as superior, like the CEO, I'll just say, or maybe your vice president, or whatever. You have to judge the situation. It also depends on how open they are to conversation. But when you find yourself in a situation, maybe you're in an elevator, in a meeting, and they might ask you a question, approach them like they're a human being, not just the CEO of the company. That was something that I know at my previous job. So many people had a hard time going to the principal, who was the owner of the company, the one that started it. And her door was always wide open. And she was my direct report. She was my manager for quite a while. And so I naturally just kind of grew to have a confident, like I got to know her on a personal level. And when people new people would come in and they'd have some sort of concern or a question or whatever, they'd never actually spoken to her. Usually she was pretty good about making time to meet with the new people. But when we started hiring a lot of people all of a sudden, you can't always schedule stuff at the most optimal time. And I'd just say, hey, poke your head in. And they're like, no, that's the owner. They're like, yeah, it's the owner. Go ahead, she'd love it. And I knew that because I had conversed with her like a human being. And a lot of other people saw her as the owner, and it's, we're all human beings. We all have, sometimes it's not going to turn out great. Sometimes they're not going to all greet you with hugs, but at the end of the day, we're all people and we're all looking for some sort of connection. We're all looking for also some sort of connection. I'm going to leave you go because this video is going to be kind of a beast to edit, I think, because I am going to have to cut out some of this because I did kind of go off and on. But I will see you tomorrow. Until next time, be good to each other.